The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is Jennifer Schaus coming to you live from Washington, D.C. We are currently in our Webinar Wednesday series. So thanks for joining us. Today we are lucky enough to have Marcia Lindquist with us, who's going to be discussing 7 keys to a winning cost proposal. But a quick blurb here on our webinars. They are complimentary. They all cover federal government contracting topics. Presenters range from accountants, attorneys, industry experts, and others who are sharing their knowledge about the sector. The full list of our webinars, and we are scheduled through the entire year already, can be found on our website. They are all recorded, and so under the webinar section, you'll find a subsection called Archived Webinars, and that's where you can find all of the recordings. They're also listed on our YouTube channel. In the interest of time, we do not take questions, so if you have questions about today's presentation, Marcia's contact information will be on the last slide. It'll include her phone number and email address. We highly encourage you to contact Marcia directly. A little bit about us. We are based in downtown Washington, D.C. and provide professional services for both product and service companies that sell to the government. This ranges from anything from market analysis reports, contract vehicles, including GSA schedules, some of the certifications, and then post-award contract administration. This webinar series is every Wednesday. We also do host networking events and seminars throughout the year. You can find those all on our website. A little bit about Marcia can be found on this slide. Obviously, she has a very strong background in government contracting, and I know that she just spoke last week at 2 different, I believe, NCMA conferences. So you're in good hands with Marcia today, and I'll hand the controls over to Marcia, who again is kind enough to share her time with us, and she's going to cover the 7 key formula for a winning cost proposal. Thanks, Marcia, for joining us. The floor is all yours.
Well, thank you very much, and I'm welcoming everybody to this wonderful Wednesday. Maybe I could rename it. I want to just talk for a minute and set the stage for you. Mostly a winning proposal, cost proposal to the federal government requires several elements that seem like they, quote, just make sense in my, air quotes, in my mind. And they do, but often we find that contractors miss the boat when they put together their cost proposal. It's not just about putting the numbers down on the paper and filling out the forms. Most companies do cover those basics, but in a highly competitive environment, which we see so much these days, with tight budget constraints that we see, your cost proposal solution must not only be compliant, but also responsive, competitive, and convincing. Those last 2 are pretty important. And from the cost side, it's nearly impossible to have an impact on the technical proposal. So on the cost side, it really almost really should stand alone. So let's talk about the 7 key basics that go on, my word basics that go a long way to making sure that your next proposal is a winning proposal. So let's talk about key number 1. Key number 1 is having available and making use of current customer information. Make sure you know the factors driving the price. Customer information. That means that it's the first step. If you don't know about your customer and you're guessing, throwing darts at the wall without knowledge of what their prior buying history is, their budget constraints, their hot buttons, what they are looking for, budget pressures, then I got to ask, why are you even bidding the opportunity? If you don't know that, you're really, really shooting in the dark. You don't know whether they're price-oriented or performance-oriented. You must obtain customer intelligence and make sure you get that ethically. That means go see your customer. That means sit down with them, determine what their needs are, make sure you visit them. This is just information that I tell my particular clients that they've got to have. It is a got to have. Otherwise, I do ask, why are you bidding it? It's not what I do with my clients, but it is something that I tell my clients to do. Again, Jennifer has market analysis, so I'm going to point back to Jennifer on this. She's the go-to person on this kind of information. And then we'll move to key number 2. In key number 2, you have to know what it costs your company to do business. This is a basic. If you don't know what your, how could I say this? Don't wait until the RFP comes out. A lot of people wait until the final RFP comes out. They don't know what it costs for their company to do it. If there's a draft out, you could be building your cost and pricing strategy in the draft stages. Do an early estimate to find out what it costs you to do the work. Without a draft RFP, though, you have to gather enough intelligence about what the performance work statement is going to say so that you can estimate it, even if it's a wide-ranging estimate. Still, you may say, well, I can't be precise about it. Then you don't need to be precise. You need to at least get inside the target. Remember that at this stage, before the final RFP comes in and you're responding, it's not an exact science. So this is where it's important for you to know what it costs you to do business. This is the stage where you could work on sharpening your pencil about, if you're in a services environment, your labor rates, your indirect rates. There's lots of tools in your toolbox, but if you don't even begin to look at what's in the toolbox, how are you going to get there when the final does come out? So know your costs early before you are getting ready to actually sit down to bid. You can make many, many creative choices in order to win. So then let's move to the third key. Know what your competitors' costs are to do the same business. Here's where I'm going to turn to Jennifer. I don't mean today, right here and now, but this is where you would go to Jennifer to get some market analysis. Know what your competitors' costs are. Know what you are likely to be up against. You can do internet searches. You could do GSA searches. You could have Jennifer do that for you. There are lots of sources out there to get this information legally. So find out who your competitors are. You can find that out from your teammates. You can find that out from industry days. There are so many avenues to find this out. You must gather intelligence about what those competitors are likely to do and how they're likely to bid. Find out the little tricks that your competitors are going to be doing in order to lower the pricing. Maybe changing their work locations. Maybe infusing productivity or efficiencies into what they're doing. If they're an incumbent, that's good news because all of their performance data is available out there. You want to take a look at whether they're going to be bringing in new people as opposed to using the same staff that they've already used. The incumbents, just so that you know, tend to take fewer risks and think less outside the box. If you're new to this, then you can sharpen your pencil and beat your competitors. So that brings us to key number 4. You must provide a well-designed work breakdown structure that ties your performance work statement that you've been given and is supported by basis of estimates. Sometimes you're asked for this in the RFP, sometimes you're not. If you are asked for it, then you must provide it. You must be compliant. But we believe that without a WBS work breakdown structure for estimating the work outlined in the performance work statement, you can't adequately think through all of the different parts and pieces related to performing this work. So you're likely to leave something out if you do a work breakdown structure. Even if you did it at a very high level, the odds are you're going to be thinking about all the different parts and pieces and you'll be compliant. I certainly wouldn't go to something that is more than a third level WBS to estimate the work. We often see that contractors frequently estimate at a level that is too detailed. I think that's a mistake as well. It causes confusion and you don't estimate correctly. But when you don't do this, even if you're not asked for it, you're going to miss out on some of the details. And you may be finding that the technical evaluation will submit questions to you that say, you said this in the technical, but you didn't cost it. So there's the marriage. And which brings us to number 5, key number 5. This is one that a lot of companies overlook. Now, you may be small and you may not be able to do this, but I actively ask you to determine if your company can make any investments in the project you're bidding. What do I mean by that? People say, Marcia, what is that? Well, company investments are those items that your organization may make to enhance the performance or efficiency of the project without asking for reimbursement by the government. They could be things like training, recruiting, transitions, investments in property, plant, or equipment, project-specific reductions taken by your organization, maybe in indirect rates. They can be any of those things, but it's really, really important for you to consider them. So let's go on to number 6, and I'll take a sip of my tea. Must be the company that is easy to do business with. When I was presenting at NCMA last week, the resounding feedback that I got from the contract organization from the government was that they find that if you are easy to do business with, and I've been talking about this concept for years, if you are the company that's easy to do business with, you make your submission, your cost proposal easy to follow, easy to find the information, then you make it easy for the contracting officer to award to you without discussions. That's your goal. That's really your best goal, because as soon as you can do that, you make a quicker award, you make ultimately a customer who's happy with you, and give them what they ask for and more. I know I hear a lot of times that people say, well, if they don't ask for it, I'm not going to give it to them. And I think that's a mistake. If you can make their evaluation easier of your costs, you want to do that. Make sure that what you give them is trackable in your electronic formats. There was a time when we didn't do electronic formats, and I said to folks, make sure you give it to them because it makes their evaluation easier. I sat in the shoes of a cost evaluator this past year several times, and when I got an Excel that didn't have anything but numbers in it, no formulas, I threw my hands up in the air and said, now I've got questions. So make yourself the company that's easy to do business with. Make sure that you take a trail, leave breadcrumbs of how you got to the numbers that you got to. Then number 7. Number 7 says, make sure you are cost competitive. We all know that, but you've got to get creative about it. It's not just about the 5 or 6 things that the government asks you to do. There are tons of things in that toolbox that you can work with in order to bring your cost into a competitive range and make sure that you are creative about that. This step really, in my opinion, is the easiest step and gives you the most satisfaction, particularly when you win. And it gives you the most satisfaction before even we get to this one. This means that you sharpen your pencil and your mind in particular about things like labor rates, staff greening, efficiencies, escalation, competitive fee. Sometimes people say, well, the only thing competitive to work with is our fee or our profit. No, there's a lot more. Indirect rates, bidding direct whenever possible, creating new cost centers, company investments. There's so many things in that toolbox that you can get creative about. And oh, by the way, it's so rewarding when you win. So all of these 7 details aside, let's go to the next slide, and I will sum up for you. If you've got questions, certainly give me a call, send me an email. But all those details aside that we just talked about, there needs to be a visible unity of purpose and thoughts among all the elements of your proposal. I don't know how else to say this other than you must describe in the technical proposal as well as the cost proposal where the marriage happens. You need to help the evaluator. Very, very difficult for most organizations to make sure that that happens because they're running so fast. But make sure you can trace one to the other. Make sure that they make a good match. Make sure that the links are there so that you point to one another in order to make sure that you get a win. I thank you very, very much today for attending, and I appreciate your time. Certainly give me a call if you've got questions. Thank you.
Marcia, that was a brilliant presentation. Obviously, a lot to think about when it comes to pricing and cost proposals. So if anybody does need this sort of help, Marcia is our go-to. Again, her contact information is here on this slide. She can certainly go into more detail with you and help you be competitive and profitable in a very competitive federal government contracting market. Next week, which brings us into May, the year is flying, we're going to cover the Service Disabled Veteran-Owned Certification. On May 9th, we're doing a double header at 12 o'clock, the GSA schedule, Do I Qualify? And then at 12:30, Steps to Successful Federal Government Contracting. And then the week after, which is May 16th, we'll cover the Hub Zone certification. The full schedule can be found on our website under the webinar section. And thanks again, everybody, for attending. Thanks, Marcia, for sharing your insight and your great knowledge on this topic.